Ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and France have just beaten New Zealand 27-13 on home turf in Stade de France in Paris. So, ladies and gentlemen, rugby enthusiasts from around the globe, welcome to the grand stage. We're here to dive into the electrifying opening match of the 2023 Rugby World Cup, hosted in none other than the rugby heartland itself, France. So, we jump right in. The atmosphere was set and intense. The All Blacks were performing a never-before-seen haka, especially for the World Cup. You could see the nerve and pressure in the French eyes that were just there, and I could see that the French were kind of feeling the pressure, the home advantage. Everyone's bigging them up. They've been the on-form team for the last 4 years within the Northern Hemisphere, and they had a certain flair that they needed to bring. We'd kick off, and New Zealand came blasting out of the blocks. Early line break from Ioane, followed by some heavy carries, and then France, and they've got the early penalty, and Aaron Smith taps and goes and gets the momentum going. This is then followed up by Barrett with a clinical cross-field kick, and the All Blacks score in the corner through none other than rising star Telea. Telea is just on great form this match. He picks up the ball, and the New Zealand are out of the blocks with an early try. This is quickly responded by France, who pulled back with a quick penalty, and the opening match of the World Cup is set up to be an absolute cracker. Ladies and gentlemen, this couldn't be more set in stone for a great Rugby World Cup opening match. It's interesting because the ability to use Barrett coming in from fullback as a second receiver seems to be quite effective for the All Blacks, because you got Mo'unga that can whip it out and just play off 10. But then Barrett coming in, he offers that attacking threat that other teams might not possess, which later on in the World Cup might pose as a potential threat and problem. I could see the All Blacks going quite far in this competition, using Barrett and using Mo'unga to get outside defences, and then utilising the speed of the outside of Will Jordan, Telea, into the back line, and then you can really utilise that other part of the game, bringing a dynamic, robust approach to the All Blacks attack. But obviously, it's very interesting to see how the All Blacks implement Will Jordan, because Will Jordan, we all know him as a very attacking threat that can score tries from nowhere. But in this match, he was more used as a sort of kicking option, and he was kicking and relieving the pressure for the All Blacks. And this could have been seen as a more defensive move, because usually he's on the counter-attack. But now we're seeing him implemented as a kicking defensive option and kicking for the attack. And perhaps this might have been the reason why the All Blacks lost, because they weren't playing that high tempo attack that they usually play. In the first half, they were very high tempo and they were controlling the game. But the French somehow, I would argue that if the All Blacks continued playing the way they did, they might have actually won the game in the end. But the way in which we saw the game unfold was that the first half, the All Blacks dominated in attack. They controlled the tempo, and no one else. It was hard for the French to control, but the French defence was able to maintain, and the All Blacks were giving away sort of silly errors around the breakdown. So it was interesting that the French held on in the first half, but then they used their experience from the last few years to draw out the game. The real question now comes under, should Dupont be captain for France? Because part of me thinks the captaincy should go to Olivon or Aldrit and take less pressure from Dupont, so he can focus more on the attacking ability. Because what the Kiwis did really well is they neutralized the attack of Dupont very early on, and we didn't see his true attacking capabilities that we usually see. So if we perhaps had Olivon or Aldrit captaining early on, then it might suggest that there's more opportunity for Dupont to really release his magic and French flair and champagne rugby that we love to see. Because I feel like perhaps this is one area that I don't know about you guys, but maybe the captaincy should be typically with a forward. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this takes the pressure away from the key decision makers so that we can have a captain that can lead from the front. This is just my own personal opinion on the situation. I'd love to hear what you say in the comments and maybe have a little debate. Anyway, moving on. Even though Untermack was not playing, the French were able to squeeze out points from the boot of Ramos. And this was a real turning point for the French throughout the game. Ramos was kicking them over from 60 meters, 50 meters, 21 meters. He had a very good game on the boot tonight, and that kept the scoreline ticking as the All Blacks were attacking and they were drawing out the penalties. And this really comes from the strength of the forwards. For example, Aldrit, he's been a heartbeat of the French attack over the last few years. Heavy carries, shift of momentum, and this is really what gives France a platform to then attack when they look most threatening, is when they've got the big forwards, the big pack pushing forward to give Dupont the platform to do what he wants to do. In the second half, and obviously it was nice to see in the first half that New Zealand were looking back to their older selves on the counter-attack with 2 tries from Talia, one in the first half in the first 29 seconds, and one in the second half after less than 2 minutes. This was really a demonstration of the raw talent that New Zealand can bring to the World Cup and the threat that they pose from anywhere on the pitch. And the real debate comes from, is there someone that could potentially break the record of 8 tries in one World Cup? We've seen it before with Habana, Lomu, and obviously Julien Savea in 2015. But this World Cup, it could be set to be a cracker. 2019, we didn't have any standout stars. It was more about team performances. But I feel like maybe there could be a potential record in this World Cup, potentially from Cheslin Colby, from Talea, or maybe even from Peno, because Peno got a try tonight. And we know Peno is a dangerous attacker when he wants to be. We then move on to how the All Blacks seem to neutralise the threat of Antoine Dupont. But I think this created more space for the players around him. I've got to say, fair play to Sam Whitelock. He's the only player in the All Blacks squad with the chance to win 3 World Cups and be the first player to ever do so in such a career. Fair play, hats off to him. But do you guys think that Sam Whitelock and the All Blacks will be able to do this? My prediction personally was that the All Blacks were going to win tonight. They were going to go through and nicely cruise to the final, and the French would have lost and then faced potentially Ireland or South Africa in the quarterfinals, and then got to the finals themselves, and we would have seen a France-New Zealand final, with France just tipping it with the home advantage. But tonight, I've been humbled, and I have to admit that potentially my predictions were wrong. I mean, obviously my predictions were wrong if I didn't get it correct. But what I'm really impressed with is the defensive ability of Richie Mo'unga. If any of you saw, Richie Mo'unga came in with a try-saving tackle in the second half on Peno. And there was a lot of question marks around whether Mo'unga should have been included as 10 or whether it should be Beauden Barrett. But the nice combination between having Beauden Barrett come in as a second receiver, Richie Mo'unga solid off the kicking tee, and bringing that defensive prowess really showed in this game. But the All Blacks need to break into the game and control the game more. It seemed that they were all over the place and they're just throwing passes left, right and centre, hoping to create magic. They need a bit more structure into the game. And what France came in and they did really well. And obviously Untermack was out, but Jalibert, he came in and he set up Peno to score the try of the game. And the stadium was jumping, and it seemed that France is not missing Untermack at fly half because Ramos has been able to convert. And Jalibert's bringing the attacking threat. However, what is noticeably missing is the connection between 9 and 10, between Antoine Dupont and Untermack. He was there. Can we find a France that gels in and blends in, where Untermack or Jalibert, je veux dire, that Jalibert and Dupont can connect on a real level? So the French, they brought in a very strong attacking play. And to be honest, it was very well structured, the attack, and France pulled through, and they were the rightful winners of the game. And I have to admit, this has set up the rest of the World Cup to be a very exciting fixture throughout. Obviously, there's a very long way to go, and this is only the first game, but France are setting the tone, and they've set the atmosphere for what looks like to be a very, very interesting, exciting, flamboyant champagne rugby event to see. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have enjoyed this coverage of the first match. If you have any questions or feedback on anything on we can improve, what you want to see, exclusive content, we will be sure to show that. We're planning to be hitchhiking through France for the Rugby World Cup, interacting with the fans and seeing your interactions, and we want to get the most out of everything that you want to see. So just send us a message, send us your footage, and be sure to share it on Champagne Rugby. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, listen to the podcast, and this is Hamish from the Champagne Rugby page. Peace out.